join us in our journey as we uncover where these peculiar gourmets come from around the world as we talk food, menu, etiquette, and so much more here on Mat & Mat with our one and only Chef Matt in the studio. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
How are you doing?
Doing well. I couldn't help but notice you were talking about some in the first part of the show. So a little funny story. I think it's kind of cute.
Okay.
My wife's nickname for me, like when we first started dating, she still calls me this to this day. So I'm Mettu. So she calls me Mettu.
Mettu.
Like Mettuga. Like Mettugi is like a grasshopper.
Okay.
And so you know the area of Seoul called Tuksam.
Oh, 그렇죠.
So after we got married and I was no longer Tuksam, I'm now her Tukpyeon.
Oh, so cute.
It is pretty cute. I'm not going to lie. I came up with that one too.
썸이 아니라 이제 남편이 되니까. Oh, 뚝편. That's so cute. We don't have any nicknames. I feel like we should because we just call each other by names, and I feel like we need to upgrade.
I've never been a nickname sort of person. I do go like 호칭 and like whatnot. So I say like 자기야 or like in
That's
English I
nice.
say like babe or baby, and it's like sometimes to the point where it's like you do remember my name, right?
Matthew, that's right. Yeah. Well, in any case, we are here talking about food, whether you are sometime or going on a date. Food in general is so important in any part of life. So today, what would our theme be?
So last week, if you caught our episode, we talked about foods that are named after their shapes.
Yes.
Talked about things like different pasta shapes and like 붕어빵,
That's
for example.
right.
So we're diving back into the world of food names, and we're going by foods that are named after where they're from.
Oh, I like it. I can literally only name one.
Me too. It's actually surprisingly hard until you start thinking about it.
Okay.
And then they start coming to you.
Oh, yes, I see the list. Okay, well, there you go.
So that's why we have a question for today's listeners. Which region in Korea is your favorite for food?
Wow. Hard question ever. 한국에서 음식으로 가장 좋아하는 지역이 어디인가요? 당신은 한국의 어떤 지역 음식을 가장 좋아하는 거일 수도 있고요. It's quite interesting because Korea is pretty I don't know, what's that word? Proud. They have pride. They have food pride
Absolutely,
in their different
100%.
regions, particularly down south as well. So if you're coming from the south, I feel like you'll definitely say your hometown or even your mom's kitchen. Let us know. 샵 1013으로 문자 보내주시길 바랍니다. All right, well, let's get to it. Most famous foods named after places.
Yes, so for this one, I went with one of those online lists. You know, the ones that like everyone steals from each other. And we have some good ones here. We also have some lame ones.
Okay,
here, too.
몸풀기죠, 몸풀기.
And the number one, which I think this might be the most universal dish on this list in the sense that I think almost every country eats this dish to a certain extent. It's spaghetti bolognese.
Yes.
From the Bologna region of Italy.
Oh, Bologna.
Yeah, Bologna. So 우리나라
Okay.
말로 하면 미트 소스 스파게티
그렇죠.
is what's normally on the menu as, and that's what it is. So a bolognese sauce, bolognese is short for ragu alla bolognese. So ragu in the style of Bologna. And ragu is a term that's used both in Italian and in French. It's kind of like a thick, kind of rustic, saucy, soupy sort of deal. So it kind of blurs the line between a sauce and a stew.
Oh, does it? Okay, interesting. Yeah, I love me some spaghetti bolognese. But also, it's just, you call it spaghetti bolognese, but every household also has their own recipe.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's not just around the world, but in Italy as well.
Oh, 그래요? Yeah, because we put celery and broccoli in it. And I guess that's why it's kind of like the stewy thing because you really can put any vegetable in there. And it's pretty good.
Sure. And, and that's an interesting one. Broccoli, definitely not traditional. But celery is a point of contention. It's something that a lot of even Italians will argue about. So a lot of traditional ragu bolognese recipes don't use celery.
Okay.
But a lot of them do because the kind of base of a lot of dishes is called a sofrito in Italian. It's carrots, onion, and celery. And because that's the base of so many dishes, a lot of people believe, well, that has to go into a ragu bolognese as well. Other ingredients that are unusual for ragu bolognese is milk.
What?
Yeah, and there's some
like
some households don't even put any cheese in there. They only top it with a little bit of cheese, and that richness, that creaminess comes from milk.
I'll have to try that. I guess, there's like cream pasta, so why not do milk pasta?
Yeah, you don't make it until it turns pale. You just add a little bit for some richness.
Okay. We do that with ramyun. Some people do that with ramyun.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, white wine instead of red.
Oh, okay. Is that does that make a big change?
It does. I think it makes it a little lighter. It makes it a little less hearty.
Okay.
And I think it gives a little bit more brightness to it rather than the kind of richness that red wine brings.
Okay. I do favor white wine because it is sweeter as well. Maybe that will cut down the acidic tomato.
And not some people don't even put that much tomato in there. They just put a touch of tomato paste.
There you go. To each his own. Spaghetti bolognese. I like it. Next up, going to France, I hope.
Yes, France, the Champagne region of France. And yes, there is a difference between just champagne and sparkling wine, not necessarily in the way that it's made, but it's a protected name. So if it doesn't come from the Champagne region, it's sparkling wine. And that's a legal distinction.
It's like the croissant thing.
It's like the croissant thing, absolutely.
But this is universal?
This is universal. So according to trade laws, so especially when it comes to alcohol, the laws that govern what you can call a certain thing, where you can sell it, how much it gets taxed, those are very, very strict in just about every country. And champagne is no exception. Same thing with Scotch whiskey. If it's not made in Scotch, you can call it a Scotch-style whiskey. But what is interesting is that you have a lot of those Korean whiskeys here in Korea, right? Like, the ones that like a lot of Ajishis drink and whatnot. They have those really old school looking bottles and old school names. Those are actually Scotch.
Okay.
Those are really Scotch. They are made in what are known as OEM factories. So they're Korean companies, but they contract out to distilleries in Scotland.
Okay.
So they can legally call that Scotch.
Is that the difference between Scotch and whiskey? I'm seriously not educated at all in alcohol.
It has to be made in Scotland to be called Scotch.
And if it's not, it's just whiskey.
Or it could be Irish whiskey. And whiskey EY and whiskey Y, that's
Is
also
different?
a distinction
Is
as well.
it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's opening up a can of worms there. Champagne. 좋습니다. It has to be from Champagne in France to be called champagne.
That's right. Otherwise, it's just sparkling wine.
좋아요. Next up is one of my favorite foods.
Buffalo chicken.
Actually, buffalo wings.
Buffalo wings, yes.
Yeah.
맞아요. It has to be the actual wing.
Yeah, for me, I don't even do drumsticks.
맞아요. 봉이. It's just not nearly as satisfying. It's all about the 날개. It's about the flat. I 100% with you.
Am I the 바람둥이 for liking the 날개s? But I like in any chicken dish, I'll call dibs on the wings.
It's that 약간 뼈 사이에 있는
Yes.
고기. It's so sweet and moist. It's perfect. It is the most perfect 고기 on the meat.
And 약간 보람도 있는 것 같아요. It's like satisfaction of picking it all out.
Yeah. Because that's true. Because you can eat a wing probably cleaner than any other bone
I would say
on
so.
the chicken. Let me ask you this though: do you think buffalo chicken is named after the animal or the region?
Okay.
So I threw this one on there to see if you catch it.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna say the region because maybe the region was named after the animal.
Interesting.
There you go, killing two birds with one stone.
You are correct. It is named after the region, although I don't know if the city of Buffalo is named after the animal. Buffalo, New York is where this dish is from. And they can add, this is one of those rare dishes where they can actually pinpoint exactly where it was invented and who invented it.
Oh, cool.
So at this place called The Anchor Bar, it's relatively new. I want to say it's like less than 80 years old, this dish.
Okay. Is it really?
Yeah. I think it's like definitely mid 20th century, maybe even the 60s.
So what are we calling this dish? Is it the marinade Or is it like just the wings itself? Because everyone would just have the whole chicken before.
That's really interesting. So I think when we're talking about it nowadays, we're talking about the sauce. But at the time, wings were pretty uncommon. They were definitely seen as much more of like a leftover part of the chicken.
Sure.
You know, they would be seen like kind of like how we would look at 곱창, not maybe today because a lot of people do love 곱창 now, but maybe how we looked at 곱창 back in the 90s and early 2000s. Is at a place called the Anchor Bar, and the owner's wife was in the kitchen one night, and the owner had like a bunch of his friends over, and it was getting kind of late, and they're like, cook us something to eat, we're starving. And she just whipped this dish up. It's
amazing.
Hot sauce and butter, and that's what makes buffalo sauce buffalo sauce.
Is that it?
It's half hot sauce, half butter. There is a specific sauce that you're supposed to use traditionally. I don't think I can say the name of it, but it starts with an F, and it's a man's name.
Oh. Is it? I thought you were going to say
F's red hot sauce. Yeah. No, it's not tea. Actually, tea is probably too acidic. This F red hot sauce, it's much more mild in its acidity, and it's a little bit thicker. 조금 더 걸쭉해요. Tabasco is pretty thin.
It is. Okay, I have to try to make it at home. I've never tried to make it at home because I just love buffalo chicken wings, and I thought I would ruin it.
Oh, they're so easy.
Question here: is it breaded or unbreaded?
Oh. Unbreaded.
Yes.
100% unbreaded.
Yes.
I don't want to eat soaked fried flour. I want just pure chicken and hot sauce and butter. That's all you need.
Yeah. And no other sauce, really. No Parmesan. None of that kind of stuff.
No.
Don't get fancy with it.
I might try it if they're doing like a wing night at a place.
True.
Or if they're known for maybe, their other one, their lemon pepper is really good. I'll get like the smallest possible order of that.
But 18 pieces, I'll eat it by myself.
Yep. 18 I think I can do. I know exactly how many I can eat. Or at least I know how many like 28-year-old me could eat. My friends and I, we went to a bar here in Korea. It's no longer around, unfortunately, where they had a wing night.
Oh.
I can eat 49 wings.
49 wings.
Couldn't do 50. I at 49, I thought I was going to die.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, wings, they're a great date food. I mean, it's just fun to eat.
I think they're a personality test in their own way. Too.
예, 맞아요. PD님께서 한국에서는 치킨 윙 많이 먹으면 바람난다는 얘기도 있다고 하는데 that's what I'm saying. Doesn't mean that you're a player.
If anything, I think you're an anti-player because you're taking the wings off. You're making these chickens so they can't fly.
That's right. Buffalo chicken, one of the best, I would say. Next up on the list is pretty popular.
Kobe beef. I think nowadays it's not known as Kobe beef anymore. Nowadays it's Wagyu. It's called
it's different. It's the same.
Yeah. Kobe beef. So Kobe is like a specific region in Japan where a lot of like Wagyu does come from, and Wagyu is also one of those protected terms. Because if it comes from Japan, and it's like true Wagyu, it's like Hanu.
Right.
But there are also Wagyu, like Australian Wagyu, American Wagyu.
맞아요.
Because they use the genetics from those cows.
Oh.
Right. So if you call it, you can call it American Wagyu.
So it's not necessarily a cut.
No. It's the type of cow. And the reason why I want to bring this up is it's called Kobe beef. Not so much anymore. That used to be kind of the term back in like the 90s, even back in the 80s. You know the basketball star Kobe Bryant?
Yeah. Oh, 맞아요.
Is actually named after Kobe beef.
Yes, that's right. His dad went there, fell in love with the meat, decided to name his kid after.
That's right. He was like, if I can't afford to eat Kobe beef every night, I'll still just name my son Kobe.
Oh, was that it?
What's really interesting, the year he was born, he wasn't the only one. There were 14 other kids named Kobe that year. So he wasn't the only Kobe. And the year that he was drafted into the NBA, it shot up to 87 kids named Kobe, I think in 1996.
There you go. That's pretty cool. I would like to meet a Kobe.
Yeah, I've never met a Kobe before either.
Yeah, how popular it is. But in any case, talking about foods named after the places where they come from. But our question being, 한국에서 음식으로 가장 좋아하는 지역이 어디인가요? 한국의 어떤 지역이 음식을 가장 제일 잘하는 동네도 어디 있는지 궁금합니다. Let us know.
That's a good point. What neighborhood even? So which region in Korea is your favorite for food?
샵 1013으로 문자 보내주시길 바랍니다. Here's Ray Conniff, New York, New York. Look at that, Ray Conniff. New York, New York. Getting in a message. 4918님, 음식은 서울이죠. 온갖 맛집은 서울에 있습니다. 제가 가본 지역 맛집은 죄다 비싸고 생각보다 별로였어요. 라고 하시는데. Interesting. Yeah, sometimes it could be a disappointment, maybe because there's so much hype around like 경주 맛집, 전주 맛집. And then you go and then 생각보다 진짜 별로일 때도 있는데. But who knows? They could be like a gimmicky tourist attraction.
There has to be something said about competition. 그런 경쟁이, you know, like in the song we just heard, New York, New York. If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. If you're setting up shop in Seoul, then you have so much more competition
맞아요.
and so much more motivation to really make something good.
Yeah. 경주 칼국수? Is it 칼국수? Oh, I forget what it was. I went down and we had, oh man, I think it was kalguksu, but I don't think it is at the same time. But it was the most amazing noodle dish that we had. And we came up to Seoul and we saw it at the 백화점 as well. And then we had it there. It was a disappointment.
Right.
So different also branches will give the different tastes as well.
Sure.
7711님 노래 듣다가 갑자기 생각났는데 뉴욕 스테이크는 왜 뉴욕 스테이크인가요?
That's actually a very, very good question.
Yeah,
it wasn't always called a New York strip steak.
What is it like the cut? Is it the style?
So it comes from the sirloin of the cow, and it was known as other names before the name New York strip really took off. It was known as a Kansas City strip at one point.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, was it? I feel like maybe when we were growing up on the West Coast, maybe they weren't calling it that, calling it New York. You might have seen it called Kansas City in a couple of places. It's called a veiny steak at one point, which is not a great name.
Veiny. It doesn't sound appetizing at all.
But there is one famous steakhouse in New York. It starts with a D, and it was known as That Cut for a long time. And then it just kind of switched over to New York as like, because, you know, New York does have a lot of famous steakhouses. But yeah, so one famous steakhouse in New York kind of took its name, starts with a D-E-L.
Don't know if I know that one.
And then somewhere along the line, it's not just that steakhouse. All the other steakhouses in New York were serving it, and it became kind of a local favorite, and thenceforth became known as New York strip steak.
I bet that's how a lot of what would you call it? Cuisines get their fame as well. 그냥 한 식당이 너무 잘해가지고 그게 인기가 많아져서 그냥 그 지역의 뭐 메뉴가 된 걸 수도 있는데요.
닭갈비 off the top of my head.
Sure.
Yeah. Just it was literally one restaurant that started it, and then everyone else. I think when I read it, it was like within a month, everyone around there, everyone in the Chuncheon area that had copied it.
Wow. 닭갈비도 그런 케이스. 근데 뭐 if people like it, then it can spread like wildfire. And
I always say that it's better to have some competition and to be in an area known for a certain dish rather to be the only one doing something.
I guess so, but I feel like some competition could be like one or two at the same block.
That's true.
But if it's like 5 in the same area, then even for the consumer, where do I go? There's too many choices. But in any case, we're talking about, once again, foods named after the places they're from. Let's take a look here. What do you got some from Korea?
So we if you're just tuning in, we're going through a list that we saw online, and we've been through some famous ones, and there's some old school ones that you don't see anymore, like Linzer Tort and Baked Alaska, two very old school dishes. But in Korea, of course, we have Korean fried chicken.
I've seen it in the U.S.
Yep. Its shorthand is now KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can say that now because it's now it's a generic name.
그러네요.
It's not just the brand anymore.
맞아요. 미국 갔는데 진짜로 메뉴에 Korean fried chicken이라고 있더라고요.
And of course, when they're talking about Korean fried chicken, they're talking about two things. The type of like 튀김옷 that we give the 반죽, the batter.
Oh, is that
yeah.
it?
So in Korea, we use a very specific batter. It uses 전분 in there, starch, rather than just straight flour.
Okay.
And it's fried twice rather than just once.
That's right.
And then they're also talking about, of course, the 양념 sauce that goes on top.
맞아요. Yeah, I mean, can't be beat. Lots of people around the world crave the the KFC we know here today, but it's incredible how that blew up because it's such a basic item.
That's a great name for a Korean fried chicken place in the US, KF Sweet.
KF Sweet.
I like it.
There
I like
you
it.
go.
But we can talk about foods here in Korea that are named after specific Korean regions. You have things like 안동 찜닭.
Oh, 맞아요.
I think this is our household's like go-to. If you don't know what you want to eat, this is what we go out and eat.
그래요? Okay.
Because it's got a little bit of everything, right? You know, it's got the myeon in there. It's got the, chicken. You
Yeah.
can never go wrong with chicken. It's kind of soupy, but it's also not soupy.
Yeah, and it's 약간 매콤해 too.
Right. It's the 중간 of everything.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't had this in a long time.
Yeah. It's every time I have it, I'm like, oh, it's so good. We should have it more often.
That's true, but it is a 단체 place.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's always in big servings. It's hard to
Right.
find a place that does it well, that does it in small servings for two or even one.
명동에 많이 있었는데. I don't know if they still have it now, but I guess we'll go down this list in a little bit. Running out of time. Once again, foods named after their place of origin, so to say. And the question still being, 음식으로 가장 좋아하는 한국 지역 어디인가요? Let us know. In the meantime, here is Billy Joel, or let's switch it up. Here's Taylor Swift, Champagne Problems. Join us in our journey as we uncover where these peculiar foods come from and their peculiar places of origin as well with our one and only Chef Matt in the studio on 맛댐맛. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Once again, talking about foods coming from various regions which we so love and I guess not really know that it actually came from that place. Like I didn't know that Champagne was part or it has to do with or it has to be from Champagne to be called
it has
Champagne.
to be the Champagne region. And it's like even like, Vin de Champagne. It's not even like champagne wine. It's just called Champagne. It's as if they made like a beverage out of like 강원도.
Yes.
And it's not just like 강원도 champagne. It's just called 강원도 around the world.
So our question was 한국에서 음식으로 가장 좋아하는 지역이 어디였는지 궁금했는데요. Do you have an answer for this? I thought about it, and because one of our listeners said Seoul, I thought it was really interesting. But there was a particular place in Seoul for me. I think because I live in Gyeonggi-do, when I go to my friend's house, there's a stark difference when you look at the 배달 어플을 보면은 경기도랑 서울이랑 너무 달라요.
Sure.
So if you go to 용산 and then you look on the 배달 apps, then blue ribbon restaurants everywhere.
Right.
And so I feel like Yongsan is a pretty good foodie place to live.
Sure.
Yeah, you get the best of the foreign foods as well as the Korean foods that compete with them. So my vote would be Yongsan.
Yeah, it's right in the middle too. So your delivery radius is pretty wide.
Right.
Back when I was living in Yongsan-gu, like I was living more like on the western side. So
Okay.
we would also be able to get stuff from Mapogu as well.
Oh, there you go.
We were right on the border. So
Yeah, I mean, your life will be very different based on the neighborhood you live in, Korea, primarily because of the food that you are able to get delivered to your place. Getting in another message, 8173님, 관공서 주변에 맛집이 많아요. 시청, 구청 근처. That's right, 시청. That's right.
yeah.
That's very true. Around the city hall, then you'll probably get a lot of good food.
There's actually one of my favorite restaurants is out in that area. It's a 생선구이 place.
Ooh.
Yeah. They do really, really good. Just their menu's pretty big, but the restaurant is also pretty big, and they're very busy for lunch with
Okay.
workers. So
I
the
think-
turnover is very high.
Yes. That's also key as well. I think more than neighborhood restaurants, if there are a lot of office workers, then you know that place will be bumping with restaurants.
Yes, absolutely.
회사원들이 많으면, 회사가 많으면 그 지역에서는 맛집이 굉장히 많을 것 같은데 있는데요. All right, well, let's get to the second part of the show. Next question, so to say.
So, just like we talked about pasta last week when it came to shapes, foods named after shapes, cheese is one of those foods that's really commonly named after words from as well.
그쵸.
So, 여러분, what is your favorite cheese?
Oh, good question. 여러분이 가장 좋아하는 치즈는 무엇인가요? Maybe some people aren't big fans of cheese to really know the variations of them as well, because I think lots of Koreans will have, cheese in a lot of their Korean foods.
That's right. Is nungkot a region? Is slice a region?
맞아요. But it is pretty a generic type. But I think if you venture off into different variations of cheese, mind will be blown. For me, I would say pepper jack.
Ah, interesting.
But I doubt that pepper jack is a place.
No, but what is a...
Is it, unless it's a spin-off of Monterey Jack?
Yeah, Monterey Jack. That's right. It is a spin-off of Monterey Jack, which is
Okay.
named after Monterey, California.
There you go. Oh, it's California.
California. Two of the most popular cheeses in Korea, I want to say, brie and gorgonzola.
Okay.
Both of them are named after places.
Gorgonzola, not a big fan.
It is. I'm not a huge fan of it either, but it is very common, especially in Italian places.
And Korean
gorgonzola, like pizza.
맞아요. With honey and almonds.
With honey and almonds or hoju.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. But I don't know. It lacks a little flavor.
That's what I think people like it because it's creamy.
Because it's so plain.
Exactly. And same thing with brie and camembert and gorgonzola, all very creamy,
Right.
less sharp, less funky.
Yeah. I mean, too funky is too much for me.
Sure.
In any case, once again, 가장 좋아하는 치즈는 무엇인가요? 샵 1013으로 문자 보내주시길 바랍니다.
That's right. And I'm going to take a little detour because I want to talk about America, because I want to talk about American cheese in a little bit. But before then, I didn't know where to stick this, so we're just going to talk about it right now.
좋아요.
There are a bunch of places in America named after foods, so it's the other way around.
Oh, they're actually named just because of the food, or?
2 Egg, Florida.
2 Egg, Florida.
Yep,
Where
so
are you from?
From 2 Egg, Florida. 3 eggs too much, 1 egg not enough.
That's right. 2 Egg, Florida.
Toast, North Carolina.
That's some plain old toast.
Sandwich, Massachusetts.
Yep.
Chicken, Alaska. Fries, Virginia. So a bunch of, and then you have places where it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's technically a place like Fruitdale, Oregon. Fruitland, Maryland. Okay. Yeah, those aren't so obvious. But then you have Pie Town. Pinetown, New Mexico. There is no mistaking what they serve there. And Oatmeal, Texas.
Oatmeal, Texas. But I mean, like Cookie Town, Oklahoma. I'd love to be in that town.
That sounds like the name of an amusement park.
I feel like everybody would just be so jolly there.
Yeah, come on down to Cookie Town, y'all.
Also kind of scary at the same time.
Come on down to Cookie Town, y'all.
That's funny. Places in America named after foods. Popcorn, Indiana. 여러 가지 있네요, 진짜.
So now let's go back to food, because there are some American foods named after places. And one of them is sriracha.
Oh.
So this is an interesting one. It is very multicultural.
Sriracha.
Sriracha. Sriracha sauce, okay, it is Thai. It is a Thai sauce. And it is named after the Sriracha town in Thailand.
Oh.
And there, again, this is another one of those rare foods where they can actually pinpoint an actual one single person who invented it. It was first produced in the 1940s by a Thai woman named, and please excuse my pronunciation, Tanom Chakapak.
Okay.
In a town called Sriracha. What makes this sauce American, however, you know the rooster sauce?
Yes.
That is the modern version of sriracha. Traditional sriracha is it's less 걸쭉해. It's a little bit tangier as well.
Okay.
어떻게 보면은 the rooster sauce sriracha, this version,
we love and know today.
it's sweeter, it's thicker, it's more garlicky. If anything, it's kind of like ketchup
That's
in terms of its texture.
Yeah, okay. This sauce, I can put it on pizza and it still tastes good.
I put it on pizza. I put it on everything.
Yeah, 왜 이렇게 맛이 있을까요?
Because it's sweet. It's sweeter than you think it is because it has enough spiciness and garlickiness to balance it out. It's also fermented as well, so it's got that really 깊은 맛 as well. So, this version of sriracha is American.
Californian?
It's Californian.
That's
yes,
right.
there you go.
Pride.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like a scare that their factory's going to shut down or anything like that. Is there any news on that or?
Yeah, so it's not great.
Oh,
so the
no.
thing is, apparently the guy who runs like the big company wasn't paying his farmers and vendors on time.
Oh no!
And so he was held up. He was held up in the courts for years, and finally he had to pay up. And that was behind like the big sriracha shortage in the past year.
아, my goodness.
Yeah.
배불었어요. 사람이 그냥 just, pay your workers on time and everybody would just be happy. Jeez. All right, well, let's get to our cheese talk, shall we?
Okay, so let's talk about American cheese. And so when we talk about American cheese, we're talking about what we call 우리나라 말로 슬라이스 치즈.
그렇죠.
And sometimes it's called sliced cheddar cheese, but the point is that American cheese can be made from any number of cheeses. It can be made from cheddar cheese. It can be made from other types of cheeses. But the thing is that you make a cheese and then you process it again to make that slicey, melty version of the cheese. So it has less to do with what it's made out of, and it has more to do with in how it's made.
Okay.
So it's made by adding citric acid, which makes the cheese smooth and melty, and then oftentimes some kind of binder, so like carrageenan gum, which is a natural was a byproduct.
Okay.
It's made from seaweed. Also, carrageenan is also named after a place as well.
Fun fact.
So back in the 1790s, America was making cheddar cheeses and still does today, and makes some very good quality cheddar cheeses. But then they started to process it. In 1916, James L. Kraft created a new processed cheese, and you know who this Kraft is because it's
there you
Kraft
go.
with a K.
That's right. That's a famous name.
That's right. And so he then gave it the name American cheese. And you know what's the big irony? James L. Kraft, Canadian.
He's Canadian. He's Canadian. And he sold it to the Americans.
That's right. So basically this was in the early 20th century where a lot of things were happening. You had the Great Depression on the horizon.
I was just thinking at the timeline, like this is before like the World Wars and all of that.
So it was after industrialization, but before the World War.
Okay.
So it was invented at the perfect time because it was a more affordable alternative to traditional cheddar cheeses. And as a result, it took off in popularity. It's a very stable product. Companies can make it into a whole bunch of other things. And it doesn't even have to be fully cheese to be called American cheese. But it's not as bad as you think it is.
How much? What's the percentage?
51%. It has to be 51% cheese. However, the rest of it is all still dairy product. Cream, milk, skim milk, buttermilk, cheese whey, or albumin, which is a type of protein from the cheese.
Right.
So it's cheese, yes, but they're not putting plastic in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're not adding a whole bunch of other adulterants. It's generally other dairy byproducts that go in to bulk it up. And it's one of the reasons why I think my favorite cheese on a cheeseburger will always be American cheese.
Will it?
Yes, because it's basically thick creaminess. Like it's you don't want it there because you want the flavor of cheese. You want cheese in a cheeseburger to add texture and moisture and creaminess. Yeah.
No, I'd go for like a sharp cheddar or again a pepper jack is so good.
Pepper jack I think is the happy medium because Monterey Jack cheese does melt very well.
Okay.
But it doesn't melt as well as American cheese does. Sharp cheddar, however, doesn't melt very well. It gets kind of greasy and kind of rubbery.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
But okay, but we can agree on pepper jack.
pepper jack.
That is where we can form our alliance.
The best of the best. Once again, 여러분이 가장 좋아하는 치즈는 무엇인가요? Do you have a favorite cheese?
That's right. What is your favorite cheese?
샵 1013으로 문자 보내주시길 바랍니다. Here's cheese. 이렇게 좋아해 본 적이 없어요. getting in a message 1851님. 전 햄버거 먹을 때 아니면 술 안주로 먹는 치즈를 우리 딸은 밥 반찬으로 먹네요.
Yeah,
That's true. 애기들도 많이 먹이잖아요.
Absolutely, and it's one of the reasons why 우리나라 사람들은 are so tall now.
Yeah.
It's so a lot of people when they look at Korean, like contemporary Korean culture from the outside in, they'll be like, "Why is there cheese on everything?" You know why? Because cheese for our generation is like a 추억 음식.
맞아요.
Yeah, that kind of like mozzarella cheese, the string cheese. That we ate so much of that growing up because our parents wanted us to be tall. And it is nostalgia food at this point.
맞아요.
It's not traditional, but it is nostalgic.
Yeah, string cheese. That was really fun.
If you want a really good string cheese, that's also a 술안주. In like in a lot of Central Asia and Eastern Europe, so in a lot of the former Soviet states, right? There is a cheese called chechil. And you need to look into this. It's so good. It's string cheese that's a little bit more dry and salty than normal string cheese.
But it's stringy?
It's stringy. So you tear it apart. It's braided. And then it's smoked.
Whoa.
It's like salty. It's grown up string cheese.
Oh, they have it in Armenia as well?
Yeah, they have it in Armenia as well. They have it in Kazakhstan.
Wow.
Yeah, they have. It's so good.
It looks like bread. You know what it looks like? It looks like dry pasta.
Yeah, so
or 오징어.
Right, so they take like the cheese like strands and like 머리처럼 따요. And so they braid it and then they smoke it. And it is very much like adult string cheese.
Okay.
And it is one of the best 술안주 out there.
Oh, 그래요. Well, if we go to the foreign food mart or something, maybe we could check it out. Chechil.
Chechil, yeah. Actually, I've wanted to kind of like do like a dream startup business of mine would be to try to sell chechil here in Korea.
Really?
I don't think it'd work, but I want to try mainly because I just want to have chechil at my disposal at all times.
Yeah. Well, the question being, 당신이 가장 좋아하는 치즈는 무엇인가요?
That's right. What is your favorite cheese?
All right. Well, let's take a look at some cheeses named after where they're from as well.
Right, because cheeses, they have almost like kind of like wine. They have a terroir to them, right? You can kind of taste where they're from. But not only that, there are so many different ways to make cheese. In England, you have cheeses with like the most British names possible. Wensleydale,
Oh, yes,
Red
the
Leicester,
Wensleydale.
Double Gloucester, and cheddar. Cheddar is
cheddar.
a region in England.
There you go.
And cheddar is interesting because it refers to three things. It's the name of the cheese, it's the name of the town, cheddar, and it also is the process that they use to make the cheese. It's called cheddaring. It's made like to cheddar a cheese. You kind of when the cheese is setting, you slice it and then you kind of restack it and then cut it and then restack it, and that's what gives it its like particular texture. The cheddar region is in Somerset in England, and so that's in the West Country. Interesting thing about Somerset is that that's the one region of England where you can kind of see where the American accent comes from.
Oh, really?
So Somerset is Somerset. They pronounce the R. It's not a rhotic R. It's not Somerset. It's Somerset.
Interesting. Some people say that the South, like the American South, that's where we get or that's, I guess, the English accent evolved to the Southern accent. I forget. There's linguistics, research
it just
about
kind of
that.
gets more and more relaxed.
Yeah,
as
there you
go,
go. A little
right?
more slow.
Yeah, so in like the rest of England, you'd say farm for farm, but you say farm. You pronounce the R in West Country.
Okay.
Yeah, you have things like ing words, so like walking becomes a walk-in. Like you do in English a lot. Like you drop that
그러네요.
G at the end of an ing word. So, and like I becomes I, so I'm walking on my farm. So you can kind of see the DNA of American English
There you go.
in this region that cheddar is from.
And I feel like cheddar is very American too.
It is very American. Actually, I want to say, and don't at me on this one, but like Wisconsin, like a good quality aged, sharp
Yes.
Wisconsin cheddar.
That's right.
better than a lot of English cheddars.
Okay.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
it.
All right. Different types of cheese around the world. Real quick, then. Let's speed it through.
All right, we also have Italy, but also not Italy. Italy is also an area that's famous for its cheeses. Parmigiano Reggiano, known for the Parma region and the Regia region.
Okay.
But you have one popular Italian cheese that also kind of like forms like diplomatic alliances with other areas, in the sense that you have other areas that are making Gorgonzola style cheeses,
see.
and they'll stick their name on it. So you have Patagonia in Argentina, Patagonzola.
Patagonzola.
Oregon is a state in the United States that makes some great artisanal cheeses. You have Oregonzola.
That's good. Oregonzola.
But I think one cheese that's named after an area that is one of the the world's most popular cheese that you didn't realize is so popular. Edam cheese. You know, this the cheese that's got the red wax over it. In America, you have the little bite-sized versions of them.
Yes.
That's from the Netherlands. But it's also really big in the Philippines. They eat it at Christmas. And the thing is, you have to go back to the days of like colonialism and we're in like the Dutch East India country. At one point, Edam was the most popular cheese in the world.
Wow.
Because of this Dutch trading network.
Interesting.
And so it's one of the reasons why you see it in places like Belize and Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula and in the Philippines.
I guess it is strange to see like certain foods that really, get really popular, but I guess it would have to do with it, as you said, the politics in the time. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed our talks about foods named after the places where it is cheese or 닭갈비 or whichever. But in any case, once again, 매튜님 너무 재밌었습니다. We'll have to see you again next week.
See you then.
We'll leave you guys with James Blunt with California. 여러분, 내일 봬요.